Hello again, this is Tech Trends. Do you have the interest studying abroad? We have useful tips for you.
That was my first time flying a plane in my life.
It took 40 minutes for me to get out of the airport and they didn't check my luggages and everything.
Don't apply for a master's program if you are already doing your own research and feel like you have a good network of people to support you.
Like I've never, even interstate, I've not like been on a plane before, yeah.
But they did ask me some questions. They were like, where are you from? And like when I said, where are you from? They were like, okay, now provide us like your forms and everything. And after that, I had to go and apply for a study permit inside the airport.
So one advice I would give to any newcomers who are aspiring to go abroad and study abroad is to find ways to ground yourself. So finding as much as, even if it's like one other person, just finding your community little by little, just kind of ground yourself.
I'm Anita and I'm a second year student at Sauder and I'm planning to specialize in marketing for my third year. So basically I wasn't planning to come to UBC. Actually my plan was to go to UK, but I applied for UBC just to try my chance because it was a very good university and it has a very high ranking. And I got my acceptance letter pretty late. I think it was 1 or 2 months before my first class. And so I was basically in a rush. I had to do everything very fast. And since I'm from Iran, it takes a very long process for the visa application and everything. It took around 2-3 months for my visa to come. But before I come here, I wasn't in Iran. I was studying in Cyprus. I was in a boarding school for around 3 years. And so they did most of my work. They planned the invitation letter from UBC. And everything was pretty smooth, I would say. It was just so much rush and like so much stress till I got the application filled and the forms and everything. The process back then, in Iran there isn't a Canadian counselor that I could go to, so I had to go to Turkey and I had to do my fingerprints, fill out some forms, provide some forms, and after I think a month they told me to send my passport there, so I sent my passport to Turkey and then waited for another month and they sent it back to me, and honestly I was very happy that I could get it. I did it by myself. It wasn't a very long process, but because it was online and I asked some help from my friends that have done that before. It's just you had to fill in information very like accurately because they're sensitive for that, like they check everything. Yeah, I did everything pretty much by myself. It took like a day or 2 days to provide all the forms and like bank statements, funds and everything. If you have them ready, if you have all the forms already ready, then it doesn't take that much time. But if you don't have them ready, then obviously it takes more time. Needed my parents' bank statements and how they can fund the university because it's also international. It's not something like that I can provide. It's a big money. So I provided my parents financial statements and the bank statements, and basically we had to like prove to them that okay, I'm coming here, I can fund my living expenses, I can fund the university, I can fund my rent. So all those proofs, you really have to like give everything. I was very happy. I was very happy because like I told you it was like a rush, and I wasn't expecting to get the visa because I did everything so fast in a day. I was like, okay, there's a chance that I might not get it because everything happened so fast, but hopefully I did. I was very happy, yeah. And it was basically like my first time coming to Canada, so it was a new experience. I've been in Europe and those places, but Canada was like a completely new country, and like culture and everything from European, Middle Eastern countries. So I was excited to come and see. I would say it wasn't my first time traveling alone, so it wasn't a new experience, but when I arrived to Canada, well, I didn't know many people, and like from the airport to UBC, finding the campus, finding everything, and I would say it was a big culture shock for me, because everything was so different. Like from the moment that arrived to Canada, like the process, the systems that you have to fill in, more like forms. I wasn't expecting that. I was like, okay, what should I do now? But that went smoothly. Like I could do like I think it took 40 minutes for me to get out of the airport, and they didn't check my luggages and everything. But they did ask me some questions. They were like, where are you from? And like when I said, where are you from? They were like, okay, now provide us like your forms and everything. And after that, I had to go and apply for a study permit inside the airport. And that took a long time. There was like a big line. So many students wanted their student permits. So it was very time consuming, and it was like a 16-hour flight. So it was very frustrating. I would say do a lot of research. Do compare universities. So UBC is a very good university, especially the campus. But one thing that I wasn't aware of, and I feel like other students should know too, rent is very expensive here. And if you don't have a secure place in campus where you're close to your classes, it might not be very ideal. Like you have to, I didn't apply for 1 year round housing, and I only had like 1 year housing, and after that, well, I was left with no places. I had to go outside and look for places. Rent was expensive. I had to find a roommate. Well, I didn't know that. So students who are coming, I would tell them to apply for 1 year housing before you come, so you get it by your second or third year. Because I applied last year and I still haven't gotten it.
Hello, my name is Prisha. So I'm from India, just as a backstory, and I applied to UBC in 2018 after I completed my IB curriculum for my 11th and 12th grade. So I had decided that I wanted to go abroad after completing my 11th and 12th grade, but I had not decided where exactly I was planning on going. So UBC was one of the options. I don't really remember the exact process of the UBC undergraduate application that I put in a long time ago, but it was the same kind of procedure. You put in your transcripts, your essay, and just cross your fingers and hope that they like you. So that's the fun part. So that was 7 years ago, 2018, 6 or 7 years ago. And then after I got accepted at UBC, I had to apply for my student permit, study permit to UBC. So in India, a lot of international students do have help from certain agencies and certain private kind of consultants who help you with visa applications. So I think it was about January of 2018 when I put in my application for the study permit through the Canadian portal itself, but from India. And it was a private consultant who kind of sat me down, took all my documents, my parents' tax documents and the financial proof that you require to prove the fact that you have enough money to support yourself here. So all of those documents were gathered together, and it took a week for us to gather all of it. So when I came in for my undergraduation, I did thankfully receive a scholarship from UBC itself to support a large chunk of my tuition fees. So, and the rest of it was supported by my parents. So they kind of helped me with housing and all the other miscellaneous kind of things. But yeah, UBC did offer me a scholarship for my tuition specifically. I think when we put it in January, in India specifically, so I'm from Mumbai, and we only have one consulate of Canada in India, and that is in the city of Delhi. So my passport had to leave Mumbai and go all the way to Delhi, go in for the stamping procedure and then come back. So that, I think it was a good 2-3 months that I was kind of waiting for the confirmation, then my passport had to go and then get stamped and then come back to me. So the waiting time was pretty long-ish, but I believe that now the waiting time has reduced quite a bit. So I joined UBC but at the Okanagan campus during my undergraduation. So they have these kind of first weekly orientation programs for specifically for international students. So that was more of like just an introduction to university life. So it was a culture shock. It took me some time to adjust to everything because this was my first time that I was living away from my parents and I was just 18, so still figuring out everything else as well. So at least for the first few months after I came to Canada, it took me some time to adjust, and not just mentally but even physically. It took me some time to adjust to the food, the weather, just kind of the change in climate that is very drastic here. Like the summers are beautiful and then in the winters it's all sad and a little depressing, so that took a little toll on me. So during my undergraduation, it took me some time to adjust. So the first year was mainly adjusting to setting discipline for myself, that I have to show up to classes every day or whenever my classes were, because for the first time I was given all freedom to go to classes or not go to classes. So I really took on that freedom really hard. But yeah, I think it's more about like setting discipline. So it took me some time to do that. But now my second time around that I'm doing my master's here, I think I'm a little more disciplined. It's been pretty decent so far, but yes, it's been a little isolating because it's a master's program. You're doing your own kind of projects. So in that sense, it has been a little isolating and a little more stressful than an undergraduate program, but working through it. One day at a time.
Okay, that's.
One kind of main advice would be to first thing would be to take it one day at a time. It will be a huge culture shock. It will be a big change environmentally and even in a social way. It will be a really big change. So one advice that I would give to any newcomers who are aspiring to go abroad and study abroad is to find ways to ground yourself. So finding as much as, even if it's like one other person, just finding your community little by little, just kind of ground yourself when you kind of come in here. And application process wise, as long as you are able to collect all your documents in the kind of given amount of time that's on the Canadian website specifically, like I'm more aware of the Canadian context, as long as you follow through with all of that and you have the required and necessary kind of qualifications and grades, it's a pretty smooth process. But yes, coming from India and a lot of my friends who have also come in from the so-called global south countries, the process of application does take long. So like 2 months, 3 months, sometimes even more than that. So just kind of pace yourself in that manner that the moment you get your acceptance, try and put in all your documents in as fast as you can.
I originally applied to UBC in maybe January or December of 2021. I took a year off because I was doing a graduate fellowship or a post-grad fellowship. And so I applied from when I was an undergrad to UBC and then a couple of different schools in North America, or in the United States. And the other schools didn't want me because I wasn't smart enough. No. But the other schools, you know, the programs didn't match, whatever. I got accepted into UBC, and part of the reason why my application for UBC was kind of tailored for the school was that I had applied to a Fulbright fellowship, I guess, the year before. I didn't get that, but part of that application included references to professors that were here in the department that I wanted to work with, and so I already had a couple of like contacts that I had made at this school. I don't know if that lended itself to my acceptance, but it was included in the application. So applied, got in, took a deferral year, found out after about a year in maybe February or March that I was receiving scholarship money to come to UBC. So I was able to enter in September of 2023. I got the admission originally in March of 2022. The visa application was a pain in the ass, in part because I had to apply for my visa from Japan. So at that time, for the year that I had taken off, I was doing research in Japan in preparation for the master's, and basically that meant that I had to work with my parents to try and figure out, like, what do I need to do to get into Canada? So we tried, how did this all even start? I guess I contacted somebody at UBC in the master's program saying, hi, how do I make sure that I can come into the country? They referred me to the GC Government of Canada website. That was a hellscape because that website is terrible. But yeah, essentially the biggest thing that I remember being maybe a barrier or something that was difficult to figure out was the finances. When you are applying for a student permit, at least from the United States to Canada, you have to prove that you have, I believe it's 10,000 Canadian dollars in savings in order to complete your first year. I had an extremely difficult time proving that because I had income coming from a bunch of like jobs in Japan, jobs in the US. So yeah, kind of like Prisha said, get all of your documents in early. So I got a scholarship to pay for my tuition at UBC. I also received a scholarship to help pay for housing and tuition from my undergraduate institution. But the 10,000 that I had to prove that I had in savings was, I had to make that on my own job. I started it around November, December, and it took about 2 or 3 months to get all of the documentation ready. Submitted it maybe around March, April, and then I did not get my full student permit approved until like August. I actually didn't get my work addendum to that permit approved until after I came to UBC. Not horrible. You know, they ask you a bunch of questions. What are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. But I received my student permit documentation, the paper, at immigration. And they said, you need to reapply for this after a year. I didn't realize that I had only applied for a year. So I have to redo that again, I guess. Yeah, it wasn't too much of a pain in the ass, but it was clear to me that I was applying for, I keep touching this, I'm sorry. I was applying to this being the first person in my family to ever go to an international school or apply for a visa. And it was clear that like we didn't know all of the details that we probably should have known before I came here, but I figured it out. Not horrible, I don't know. It's, you know, I've got Prisha, so we're chilling. It's the one thing that I will say is don't apply for a master's program if you were already doing your own research and feel like you have a good network of people to support you. Because in that case, you're just paying a school to let you do research under their name, which, I don't know. I'm already, like, an American. I already have certain structural privileges of being associated with institutions in the US. So I don't know that I necessarily needed to be here, but, you know, I go to classes, I do my coursework. My advice would be, during the application process, do not assume that you can do all of it alone. No matter what that looks like for you, whether it's your family that's helping you, whether it's your friends, whether you're calling the government of Canada and saying, please figure out how to get somebody to help me, do your application in community, because it is a lot to keep track of. It is a lot of documentation. It's a lot of money to manage at once. And it just becomes extremely overwhelming. So if you can find any form of community, even just somebody to give you a second pair of eyes to help you look over and keep track of what you're doing, I think that's pretty crucial to the application process.